Hello, my beloved. Welcome into another video. So today we're going to be talking about blame shifting, what it is, and this video will probably be short and sweet, but it's just a little bit of a definition to add to our series of understanding the language, terms, the definitions, the tactics, at least being able to put a name to what your experiences are, okay? So blame shifting is when it's a tactic that many narcissists and psychopaths will use, and it is because of a lack of accountability and taking responsibility. They will shift the blame onto others or onto you. And so it often looks like, obviously, not taking accountability, but making you the perpetrator. All right. So this can happen a lot when you're in a dynamic, mostly with narcissists and psychopaths, but it can happen with anybody who hasn't really grown up. Okay, but it is a red flag. I want you to pay attention to it because if it is pervasive, that means the person never takes responsibility and always puts the blame on somebody or something or someone or you, everything but them. There is a deeper problem here that you need to be aware of. Okay, and now when we're talking narcissism, this is a pervasive pattern in narcissism. Okay. It is a massive red flag that you need to be aware of. Now, do a lot of toxic people do that? Yeah, absolutely. People who are dealing with codependency do it too. People who are doing, or people who are enablers, people who have gone through their own bad situations growing up and experiences and got stunted as children. Anybody who has been through trauma as a child is developmentally stunted at that age. So they might be in a physical human adult body, but developmentally, whether that be emotionally, mentally, they are stuck at a certain age. And that part of them, at least, did not develop. That's not to say all of the other parts didn't, but there is a part of them that hasn't. And so many people who have experienced trauma in their lives, especially between the ages of being born to 18, those people in that category are more susceptible to not taking responsibility for their own actions. And I can tell you, as a recovering codependent, I did this myself. It was one of the toxic traits that I realized was prevalent in codependency, and also just based on all of the trauma that I had been through. And so I understood this, right? I wasn't afraid to accept this, but the difference between somebody who is ready or on the path to spirituality, to accepting themselves, to loving themselves, this whole path, the difference between people who are on this path and people who are not actually on the path, even if they claim to be spiritual or claim to be on the path, who have all the knowledge and information, is you will see that the people who are on the path can take accountability for their actions and don't deny their reality, don't deny the truth, and they take accountability for their actions. Even if, and because it's a growth process, even if they deny it at first or they fall into old behaviors at first, and then they come back to you and they're like, ah, crap, I'm so sorry. I fell into this old way of being. And yes, I see your side. I absolutely do. And I see how I did that. And I'm so sorry. That's vastly different than people who are not ready to change, people who are just toxic, living in their toxic traits, I should say, who are not ready to take any accountability for their actions. They don't have to be narcissistic, but you're going to see that, but you're also going to see it with a level of other things that fall into specific groups and categories like codependency, like narcissism, like psychopathy, right? You're going to see, based on all of the different traits, where they land. And a person who falls on the scale of not being a narcissist or a psychopath has empathy, even if they're living in their shadow or out of their shadow. They still have empathy. They still feel guilt and shame and remorse for their actions at some point, even if it's not right away. Pardon me. Even if it's not right away, they still do. And so you'll be able to tell somewhat based on their reactions to things, if they are sincere or not. But obviously, these people are still learning or still living out of their shadow, still living with these toxic traits, and still not looking at the truth or wanting to. They're still running away from the truth of who they are. Okay. So they're still not people that you would want, obviously, in your relationship. But the narcissistic people or the psychopaths, they lack that empathy. They fake the empathy. And a psychopath and a covert narcissist are the best at faking that empathy. They are so smooth. That's why they go undetected so many times and for so long. They are so smooth and they are so good at faking that empathy. And that's why they choose really empathetic people to be in relationships with, because they want to steal that empathy. They want to steal your identity. They want to steal all of your mannerisms and everything that you do so that they can really play that part and they can really look like they are that guy or girl. So I divert. I come back to these people who, you're gonna be able to know because of all the things that we're going to talk about on this channel. You can't just pinpoint one thing, right? As I've said in these videos, you can't pinpoint one thing and be like, all right, that's who I'm dealing with. You have to have a plethora of information to understand, to be able to pinpoint different behaviors, patterns, and ways that these people show up time and time again in order to identify who you're dealing with. Okay? So with blame shifting, that can often look like, okay, you've had a conversation with your partner and they tell you that, you know, they tell you that they're going to make sure that they're home around this time every night, and that, they're going to make arrangements with their boss just to make sure, and blah, blah, blah. They give you whatever story they want you to hear and that you want to hear. Because let's face it, when you're in these relationships, you're often in denial. I was there. I understand. I have compassion for it. But then all of a sudden they aren't showing up when they say they're going to show up. They do for a time, and then they don't, and you bring it up. And instead of taking any responsibility, like, excuse me, like I wanted to go to my friend's house and, play video games, or I was getting some groceries, or the truth, whatever the truth is. I mean, some of those can sound like excuses too, right? But whatever the truth is, instead of saying that, making up excuses and blaming it on, like, instead of taking responsibility, I should say, and telling you the truth, or just taking responsibility or accountability for their actions, they're going to blame it on their boss, keeping them late, or they're going to blame it on some sort of traffic jam, or they're going to blame it on a flat tire, or you're going to get this all the time. And it's not just the small things like this, right? It's everything. And that's the difference, is that some people, yeah, they have triggers. Even people who are on this journey who are healing, Everybody still has triggers. Everybody still has things that they're blind to. Everybody still, because it's a scale. You have to take steps upwards and continue learning, and you're not going to learn everything in 1 year. You're going to keep learning new things about yourself every year, and there's going to be more things that you need to let go of and purge and heal and adopt every single year. Every year, right? And so, because of that, we also have to have compassion for those who are still somewhat blinded to their own truth, as long as they're making some effort, right? We have compassion, but we know the difference between those people and the people who are constantly, with everything, shifting the blame onto somebody or something else, never able to take accountability or responsibility for their actions. It's like if you were to leave one of them because they were cheating on you, they're going to tell everybody that you cheated on them. That's blame shifting. That's an extreme one, but it happens all the time in these relationships with narcissists. And psychopaths will do this too because it's a form of control, right? And they don't believe that they should have to take responsibility for their actions. It's below them. And so you're responsible for everything. You're always the one who's at fault. When you're in a close relationship with these people, you are the perpetrator, not them. You're the one who does everything wrong. You're in the wrong every single time. And if it has nothing to do with the two of you, between the two of you, it's put on the children if you have children. It's put on their parents, it's put on their friends, it's put on their coworkers, it's put on their boss, their job, the road conditions, like literally anything but them. It could be as wild of a story as, and you'll get stories for sure. Often you'll get stories along with it. It can be as wild as, like a goose was flying through the sky and then it got zapped by lightning and it just hit the windshield as I was driving, and then I went into the ditch and I got so scared and panicked that I had to sit there and hyperventilate for the next 2 hours. Okay, that's crazy. But would you put it past them? Have you been in relationships with people who are that over the top? Maybe not a covert narcissist. They're not really over the top with their emotions other than rage and envy and jealousy and contempt. But those that are those that are overt narcissists, they can get pretty over the top with their stories too, and their projections and their, flipping the story and the narrative. Another way that you might see this show up as, and this was something that I noticed before I even had the language to put to these things, was um, this idea of you bring something up with them that you don't like they're not pulling their weight in the relationship, you're doing all the work, or you're doing all the parenting, you're doing all the housework, you're doing all the relationship work, you're doing everything, and they're doing nothing but maybe going to work. If you have a narcissist relationship like that, where they're actually holding a job down, then, they're going to do another deflection tactic, which I call look a duck. But it falls into the same thing. And so it's not necessarily blame shifting, it's diverting, redirecting your attention by bringing the subject to something completely different to try and get your attention off of that. And it's got to do, like, it correlates with blame shifting. It's the same pattern, but used differently. And that's why I want to bring it to your awareness. I'm sure there's a different term for it. I don't know it. I call it, oh, look a duck. Because as soon as I started to recognize this as a pattern, maybe we should call it something different, but kind of like it. Oh, look a duck. As soon as I started realizing this as a part of the pattern, then I was like, oh, this happens all the time. So it's a way of deflecting responsibility from them. So you put a spotlight on them and say, I don't like the fact that I'm carrying all this responsibility within the relationship and I'm doing everything and I'm doing all the child rearing and all the stuff for the home and all the cleaning and all the cooking and all the, and then they'll go, yeah, but we're and they are so good at really bringing your attention because you're already worked up energetically. They know this. You're already mad. You're already upset that they are not reciprocating in a marriage or a relationship or a dynamic or a family, that you're getting used. So they use that to their advantage and they'll bring you somewhere else that triggers your emotions to a higher, more elevated state, but it's in a different direction. So it causes dissonance in your brain and it causes you to lose track of what you were just talking about and to be focused on something else completely different and irrelevant. And they will do this time and time and time again to get the focus off of them. And it's a part of blame shifting, but it's kind of the opposite way, right? So instead of you clearly hearing them shift the blame onto somebody else or onto you or something else, they will divert your attention away from them so that they're no longer under the spotlight and you forget what you were just talking about because they want you to have some sort of like whiplash in that moment so that you forget what you were just talking about. And they implore your emotions, quite often manipulating your emotions in this tactic so that your emotional state gets risen to a point where you do get that cognitive dissonance, that whiplash, and you do forget about what you were talking about because now you're in an argument about something completely different. Or your brain is just taken to a different place, even if you're not escalated emotionally. And they are really good at doing this. So these are two ways in which they will use this tactic in order to divert any and deflect any responsibility from themselves and any accountability. So pay attention to these anytime that you see them. And yeah, hopefully this helps you. If it does, if this video helped you in any way, shape, or form, or you think it can help anybody else, please share it with all your loved ones, your women in your life that need these kinds of videos and this content and information. If you're new here, feel free to subscribe. Join our beautiful, beloved community of women. We're getting empowered here and strong, so stay tuned. If you are returning, give it a thumbs up. That helps my algorithm so much and helps me to share all these videos, this content with other women who are in need of this information. And there are many. I wish I had this information when I was younger, even. Wish YouTube existed. But nevertheless, share this, give it a thumbs up, help that algorithm. And I love you all so much. If you want to leave a comment, you can. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.